I'd love for us to talk about this current moment of what we're located in this current time. I know we're here to talk about the Chattahoochee River as a watershed, but I love the notion that this is also a watershed moment. And so what is this moment, and why do we feel it's critical at this point to say, hey, places of worship, institutions of faith, help learn and help lead in this watershed moment?
I think there are a couple of concepts. The watershed moment that we are all experiencing, which has been a result of not only the global pandemic, but the rise in the need and awareness for racial justice, has certainly made this environmental community pause and remember and refocus on the need to be more inclusive. It's an area where we have historically, for a lot of reasons, not succeeded. And I think with, growing population, growing development, becoming more international and kind of disconnected, we realize that we need as many people as possible to become aware and to take action to protect what is a collective resource. I mean, every single person depends on clean water, regardless of the color of their skin, their religion, where they're from, any of those factors. We have that in common. And this is a watershed moment, not only for the environmental movement. I mean, there's so many needs that humans and the natural world have now. So I think, that's part of it. That's certainly part of it and that's not to be self-serving that we just want to, improve the environment, but it's a basic human and natural need that we have to preserve. If we want to make sure that our children and their children have a safe and healthy place to live and grow food and drink water. And so reaching out to new populations of folks who really maybe have not been included in the larger conversation about environmental protection and advocacy is critical. We're not going to be able, like one person or a small group of people is not going to be able to make the difference here. And so it also is really not terribly important as to what connection people have with that resource. Everybody may have a different reason to be making that connection, and it might be because of where you grew up, or a tradition your family member had, or just the fact that you might have health issues and you might need clean water. I mean, there's so many different reasons to make that connection. And there's no reason to judge. We all just need clean water. So why not work together to do it?
Great.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It strikes me when you say that it's a watershed moment, and the kind of the metaphor that goes along with that we do have this sense of building anticipation, like building material, and that at some point it's going to go over the edge, right? And I think this is a moment where we all decide how do we want to land, right? And whether we're talking politically, whether we're talking environmentally, we have our own bubbles of community, our own spheres of influence, and with that group of people, we can have some intentionality about how we land, because we're going to go over the edge, no matter like what we think, no matter how we pray. There's going to be a moment where we go over the edge and land somewhere. So I think this is a moment when we get together and we say, how do we want to land? How do we want to flow as we go forward? And so I think that we can take that in community, whether we're communing with each other over Zoom, or we can get together like this and in socially distanced ways and have real and intentional conversations about what we want that to be, right? Because this is an opportunity to reset, right? When we have watershed and something kind of goes over the waterfall or it moves down to the next level, we're all going to end up in the same place, but we can have intentionality about how we're going to move together and how we do that movement. Like what are the obstacles? Like what resistance will we have as we're moving downhill? Are we going to have to go uphill at some point and lose some of the momentum that we have? And so we can map that out together, but that will only happen if we're being intentional about it. And so when we talk about the environment, we watch the intentionality with which the animals move through the environment, with which trees grow toward the light, right? And so we can take those as notions religiously or faith in our spiritual disciplines to say, I want to grow toward the light. I want to move in the path of least resistance like water does. And so we get to plan politically, we get to plan religiously, we get to plan in our groups how we move together.
It's interesting to think about watershed moments, and I'll just maybe flip the question a little bit, is that every day, every moment, we have this invitation to a watershed moment. We have an invitation to creation, to do you want to pay attention? Do you want to take care of this? Do you want to be invested in this? And it's the same for all types of other issues. But so the watershed moment for me is when I or we or a congregation gets it for a second, realizes, takes the opportunity to answer the invitation and say, yes, I'll be invested in this. And so, you know, through things like the floating classroom and others, you know, I think we're trying to provide practical opportunities for people to say, yes, I'll be invested in this, or I'll take the opportunity to learn more about this, or where I'm rooted. And I appreciate what you said kind of about the building momentum together, because when you were talking about kind of our different groups and our silos, I was just thinking about, you know, yeah, we all kind of live in our little silos, and we all represent these like small tributaries and streams. And as we begin to connect to each other and realize how connected the work that we do is, and how creation affects our different communities, and how environmental justice affects our communities all along our social watershed, if you will, then we can realize kind of how tied together we are and build this momentum, whether we go up and lose some of that momentum and then come back down. And we're definitely all connected in that work, it seems. Watershed moment.